But it's really rewarding to see that you're making a difference.
We're nearly getting as much back as we're giving.
You just immerse yourself into it. You have to.
To act in a charitable manner can be defined as showing generosity and helpfulness, especially towards those who are less fortunate. For many of us, our charity acts are small. We may donate clothes to local charity shops or deposit change into their collection buckets. But for some, an act of charity can grow into a larger affair. These are the individuals who selflessly give their time, energy and resources to make a positive change in the lives of others. Although they may not seek recognition or fame, their impact on those they help is immeasurable. They are the unsung heroes walking among us. The ordinary people with extraordinary stories. Beyond Ordinary is a 2-part series that seeks to shine the spotlight on these extraordinary people and the efforts they have made to improve the lives of others. In this episode, you will hear from 3 people who travel to areas around the world that are affected by poverty. Paul Hanrahan is the founder of the charity Action Lesotho. Paul is not originally from Tralee, but his deep faith drew him to the area over half a century ago.
I'm originally from Limerick, and I came to Tralee in a sort of roundabout way. I'm a member of the Baha'i community. It's a modern religion. It started in the 1800s, and essentially its core belief is that the world is one country and mankind is citizens. So it acknowledges that there's borders and so forth between, but it just sees that there's only one human race. And the whole concept of the Baha'i belief is that your relationship with God is a personal one, but you're part of a community, not just a Baha'i community, but a greater community. And very few people would have heard of it in Ireland, but there was a small community here in Tralee, and I thought I'd come down here, and it was a good decision, one of the better decisions I made in my life.
Paul's journey with charity work developed after he arrived in Tralee.
I've always involved in things from an early age. Particularly in Tralee, I got involved with different things. And one of the things I got involved with an organisation called CADE, was Kerry Action for Development Education. They were trying to raise awareness about the problems in the developing world, and they do stuff through schools and things like that. So I was asked if I would come on the committee. So I came on the committee and found that I was the committee, that everybody else had gone and they needed. So sort of built it up from there. And through that, then I kind of, what I'm doing now has emerged from that.
Aside from founders like Paul, there are those that have worked with charities for decades. George and Mary Shukru have been involved in charity work for the majority of their lives.
I was involved since I was in primary school. There was a gentleman who had impaired vision. He used to come around and I used to lead him around. So I suspect I was around perhaps 11 or 12 when I first got involved, and it went on from there into the CBS secondary school, the Green, with Brother Lyons. We got involved there in multiple sclerosis, and I think the other one still in the CBS would have been rehabilitation, involved in that one as well. And then we sort of progressed from there, and eventually we came up with Eddie Roach's Chernobyl Children International, and we joined that actually as a couple, etc., and we're still at it.
I worked for Oxfam for a few years before joining AD's Chernobyl Children's International.
George and Mary work with the charity Chernobyl Children International. Their journey with the organisation began in 1996.
I used to bring down children from Shannon to Kerry, Belarusian children, for their R&R, rest recuperation. And, you know, we'd have perhaps 15, 20 coming down. But I was thinking, looking at these children, you know, if we could get aid out of their country, we would reach an awful lot more than 20 or 30 people. And an Arctic load can bring out 32 tonnes, 28 to 32 tonnes. That is a lot of aid. So I began searching around and I found Eddie Roach's Chernobyl Children's Project, as it was at the time. And I joined those, as did Mary. And we bought our own articulated truck and we got an ambulance from the HSE, the University Hospital Kerry, and we bought another van as well, and all of those were backwards and forwards to Belarus bringing aid as necessary. And sometimes we did 2 convoys per year, other times we just did 1. But the difference with us perhaps and other people would be we would go out with the aid, but then we would branch off into the building project and the dental project. And then when we were finished, we would come home. And some of those stints would last 6 to 8 weeks back to back without a break. And then we just revert back to our normal.
Our main interest has always been Chernobyl. It's taken over our lives, really. We're a long time at it, and I suppose it's become synonymous with us and us with it. Like it's an everyday thing in our house. We're always concentrating and doing something. There's always something going on.
While working for a charitable organisation is a distinct experience, establishing one is a different affair. Paul recounts an experience he had which led him to the foundation of his charity.
Most things in life happen by chance. You talk to anyone, no matter what business or organisation, they met someone who knew someone. And because I was involved with development education in Tralee, the minister at the time was travelling around the country, and Tralee was the last one I was coming to, and I was asked to be on the panel, and there was a panel of experts as such coming from around the country, and I was asked to be the local rep on the panel. And interestingly enough, I got a call the day before from some senior civil servant and saying, look, we've been to 6 other cities and we know what questions are coming from the floor. Just there isn't really much need for you to be on the panel. I said, that's great news. He said, yeah. Yeah, I said, I'm a Man United fan, and United playing the European Cup semi-final, at the same night. And I would really much prefer to be watching that than listening to Conor Lenihan, nice man that he is. But I said, you didn't invite me. He said, but you're Paul Hanrahan, aren't you? I said, yeah, but I said, you invited the chairman of CADE. And as the chairman of the organisation, I think it's really important that I'm there because we'll still be here when you're gone. So I'll be there. And on that panel, there was a woman named May Manetti Ramadi. And she was the Lesotho ambassador to Ireland at the time. And I got into conversation with her and I said, before you go back tomorrow, you might meet up. And first of all, I explained that Kerry was also a kingdom and Lesotho was a kingdom, about linking the 2 kingdoms. So she thought it was a very good idea, and that's really how it came about. We set up a bookshop first, and we did that for a few years, and again, run completely by volunteers on a low rent and with great donations of books coming in. And then after a while, we felt that we needed to be doing a bit more on the ground in Lesotho, so we opened another shop. And that's the kind of bric-a-brac shop. And then recently we opened the music shop for DVDs and albums and musical instruments. It's a community-based organisation. It's that most of the people involved in Action Lesotho here in Ireland would be in Kerry, but we do have on the board, we have people from Cork and Limerick. We are self-funding in the sense that we don't have government grants or anything like that. And there's about 35, 40 of us are volunteers that organise it in this part of the world. In Lesotho, then, we have a team working on there. They would be paid. They'd be teachers and nurses and various people like that. But on this side, it's strictly voluntary.
George and Mary share their experiences of the work they do and the impact it has on their lives.
The building project started off as doing up toilets and so on. But then they got bigger and bigger and bigger, and eventually we're doing up entire orphanages with building crews of up to 80, whom Mary and the Tralee Outreach Group used cater for, that's food-wise and so on. And then, as well as the catering, we have to actually join in with the building of it. I'm just doing the run around up and down to the various cities, and most cases would be Minsk city in Belarus, where we would get our supplies if we didn't have them brought across with us. Then the last orphanage we did is, and still dealing with it, is Vesnova Orphanage. It's about perhaps 3 or 4 hours south of Minsk. And even with embargoes on, etc., AD still deal with it to our office in Minsk. We have an office in Minsk that has to run the day-to-day operations still out there, even though we don't physically go out there. On top of that, Mary was doing the dental project with a variety of dentists, and we were also doing the hospice, which was another branch we took up, or rather Mary took up, which was rather difficult.
Like when you're out there, you get very frustrated because you feel you're only scratching the surface. There's so much you do, but there's so much more you could do. And I suppose that's what gives us the impetus to keep going back and to keep continuing on the work, is you feel you've left the job unfinished, so you want to go back and do it again and continue on and try to do better the next time.
But we had to get over the tears and so on and get on with that job. And it brought us back again because we got a feeling that we had done something good, it was worthwhile doing it. We saw the aid that Ireland had given us. We saw where it was going. We brought it there ourselves. And there was job satisfaction in it, without a doubt.
Every time you go out there, you strike up a bond with some child or other and you say, oh, I'll come back to see Sasha or Elena or Igor or whatever. There's no specific thing that keeps you going back. It's just the fact that you feel you are making a difference. And how do you stop helping? If we stop, who else is going to do it? There's nobody else doing it. So if you stop, how can you stop?
Since its formation in 2005, Action Lesotho has developed a number of projects. Paul shares the nature of these projects and how they all have the aim of improving the lives of the people living there.
We work in both what they call development work, in that we train people. But we do humanitarian work as well. So we have a range of projects. One of them is we have 40 people who would be living with AIDS, and they would get the medication from the government. But if you don't have food with it, it can have really bad side effects. So we have a monthly supplement of a bag of grain and various things like that. And we have a breakfast club. A lot of kids in the community that we work in go to school in the morning hungry because there's no food in the homes. It's kind of difficult for us in Ireland to think that there's actually no food and may not be any food in the house for 3 to 4 days. So they'd go to school hungry. They'd never miss school because they get a meal at lunchtime. But up to lunchtime, they're starving and they weren't studying, they weren't concentrating. So we have a breakfast club where over 80 kids come every morning for breakfast before they go to school. And then after them, we have preschool group, and there's 24, I think, in that. And we do all the usual preschool things with them, preparing them for school, and they get fed, and we watch their health as well. But we found that of the 24 that were coming in, half of them were suffering from malnutrition or stunted growth, and it changes their lives. So we had 27 infants, and we do a weekly intervention with them. They get a pot of soft peanut butter, and they get long life milk, and it's been hugely successful. We also have a training school for industrial sewing machines, because there are factories along the border that were built during the time of apartheid in South Africa, because Lesotho was landlocked in South Africa. So international companies built factories there so they could bypass the apartheid. So we have a program where we train a batch of 8 at a time, and over a year we'll train over 120 people on industrial sewing machines in our training centre, and we have something like 96% placement rate in the factories. So if you get one person a job in a factory, that's at least one family out of poverty. And we have a horticulture project. In the horticulture project, we have a range of greenhouses and open beds, but a lot of the people we deal with have no land or no gardens. So we have a project called a sack garden. If you can imagine, a very large, big, heavy black sack. And there's a whole process with it. You have a pipe down the middle with over 30 holes in it for drainage, and you fill it with compost and so forth. And you can grow about 12 different vegetables, but they only want to grow one. They like to grow kale or spinach. And they can grow through the year. So it means they have green vegetables on the plate every night. So that's one of our more successful projects. And that's really something that makes us happy.
George and Mary travel thousands of kilometres to conduct their charity work. They often look forward to seeing familiar faces when arriving at their destination.
You're looking forward to seeing these people again because Mary has a far better memory than I have, but she knows them by first name. Even though they're difficult names to pronounce, Mary will know them, as will perhaps many, many more on the convoy will know them by first name. My memory isn't that good. But it's great to see them again. You get a great welcome from them, etc.
We've been going out there since 1996, and you're bound to make friends, and you build relationships, and you do bring it back with you, and you don't forget those relationships. When we leave Vesnova, it's a mental institution for small children and young adults. and the children will come outside to wave you off, and it's very lonely because this place is situated in the middle of a forest with just one road into it, and it's a long, empty road, and it's very lonely. And then you see them and you know that you're leaving them behind and what you're leaving them behind too, whereas we're coming back to the west. And we have all that to look forward to, so it's lonesome. And, of course, the fact is, who will be there the next time you go back? Because the death rate would be quite high in these places from their conditions.
Like George and Mary, Paul also has to travel thousands of kilometres to oversee the projects Action Lesotho are running.
I used to travel a lot, and I used to travel for business a lot. And when I go to Lesotho, it's on business. You know, like, we're in the business of operating a charity, and that's how we approach it. We're very business-like on how we do it. And you try not to get too emotional about it because you wouldn't function. It takes nearly 36 hours from door to door to get there, even though it's only 14,500 kilometres away, but you have to go to London or Amsterdam and get a flight to Johannesburg and then get from Johannesburg down to Lesotho. And when you go over the border from South Africa into Lesotho, it's just an explosion of sound. It's kind of hard to describe, but you have what we'd call shops in front of them. You have these galvanised sheds that they're all selling things like Vodacom, you know, like it looks like Vodafone, but it's an actual galvanised shed. They're selling phones out of it. And there's somebody in front of that with an orange box selling things. But you're also conscious Lesotho is the murder capital of Africa. So it can be a very dangerous place. So you tend to be out during the day and not at night. But they're beautiful people. Really, the Basotho, as they're called.
While Paul oversees the running of his charity shops, George and Mary use their home as a hub for planning and organising their trips to help those in need of humanitarian aid.
Well, certainly it's a place I've been associated with all my life, and so I presume my roots would be here, either here slightly down the road where I originally came from. But the scenery in the mountains and the accessibility to all the various big stores and hospitals are all on our side of town. Plus the fact if you wish to get to the Dublin-Cork road, they're right beside us on the bypass. So from that point of view, it's fantastic. Plus it's the main ring of Kerry Road after Tralee, of course, as well, if you want to go touring. So, it would be a fairly good spot from that point of view. Churches and all. Synagogues, I think, are up the road. Everything there.
But it's home. We're on the edge of town. I suppose we have the best of both worlds. We can walk into the town, but we have the country on our doorstep as well, so we get to see the wildlife, and it's a good place to be.
We're actually in the store overhead, the bookshop where we process the books. I suppose it's a location for about 10,000 second-hand books. That's one way of putting it. It is what I consider one of the highest forms of recycling, you know, that it's not stuff getting pulped all the time, but rather other people getting to read, new generations reading stuff from other generations. I'm fortunate to have seen what the resources that we generate, the impact it has on, you know, people who are probably the poorest on the planet.
George, Mary and Paul feel the areas they visit have a unique atmosphere that is both heartwarming and poignant.
We've been doing it 25 years. You just fit in. You get used to the place. You learn a bit of the language, forge friendships with the children. You just immerse yourself into it. You have to. You wouldn't survive there otherwise.
I suppose the one startling thing we learned only in the last few years were that people thought, as we were volunteers, but people over thought we were being paid. They couldn't understand how somebody would do this for nothing. And I imagine to this day there's some of them who do not believe us. They still think we're being paid.
You're never satisfied. You always feel you can do more. And that's why we keep going back. That's the draw to bring you back, because you feel you can do more. There has to be, I suppose, a small bit of job satisfaction in it to feel that you've helped someone somewhere. But the feeling you come away with all the time is I have to come back. There's more to be done.
I remember the first time going in, all the kids, all the little ones, they all stood back because they'd never seen a white person. It scared the life out of them, you know. And so they're all standing back. And then the next day I came, and they literally all came over and started grabbing onto my legs. So I was trying to walk along with 3 kids holding and grabbing onto each leg. And it was an amazing experience, the transformation. And there are times when you're there and they also are singing. And the energy is just something else. It's amazing. There's a team of nearly 40 volunteers run these shops, and the board of directors and that, and the hours that they put in. I'm very fortunate. I'm looking at the actual outcome of that. Most people that support a charity never get to see the effort they put in or the money that they've donated, So I find it a real privilege. You go into some of the galvanised sheds that they're pretty much living in, and it's not a comfortable thing. But it's really rewarding to see that you're making a difference, that the team here is making a difference in some small way.
After years of travelling, George, Mary and Paul have gathered a number of photographs from different trips. They capture the impact their work can have on these people.
That is a little girl. She's in Vesnova Orphanage. She can't walk. She is verbal, but it's limited. They open their mouth to be fed. When you come towards them, they just automatically think they're opening their mouth to be fed. And she sits in that chair all day in a room, no stimulation. But we brought her in. She comes to George's son and daughter-in-law, and Susan had her eating herself, and she had her talking and playing with the doll by the time she went back. And it's very sad to think now that she can't come out. She's locked in that orphanage, regressed terribly again, Her name is Angelina. She's a sweetie. She's about 13 now.
I go around on some of the days visiting some of the people that we're supporting, and we were actually supporting one of the children, the babies here, who were suffering from malnutrition, and they need a serious intervention of consistent protein and so forth. So once a week we would deliver a pot of soft peanut butter and long life milk, and then we would measure them each week to see that they're regaining their weight and they're coming up. But in visiting, the mother was there, and we had found out that they were living in a room that's about 10 foot by 10 foot with her mother, and there was three children there, and she was blind, but she hadn't always been blind. She went blind from diabetes. So our nurse brought her to the hospital and had her checked, and they found that it could be reversed. So she had the operation, and it was successful. And when we were visiting, I took a picture of her and the children, and I showed it to her, and she pulled back a smile. I said, I've forgotten what I looked like. She hadn't seen herself in years. There was no mirror in the house, So when I turned the phone to her, and she got quite a shock.
It is clear that George, Mary and Paul have found deep fulfilment in helping others.
Well, I think with this particular charity we're involved with for the last 20 or 30 years, I think we're hands-on as regards actually doing something, physically doing something, whether it's helping a particular child or whether it's actually building something like a toilet outside or bringing out a bed and giving it to them. And there is job satisfaction in it. You do feel you're doing something. A lot of people give the money and think, that's it, look, that's fantastic, which of course it is, and that's what they do. But we go just an extra little bit and we get our hands dirty, and there is satisfaction that you've done something, you've given something back. There is certainly satisfaction that you've done something.
I have a huge sense of gratitude. I work with this team of people. Nobody can do these things on their own. Nobody has the skill set to do this. But it's when people work together that you develop this skill set to achieve these things. Probably not an area that I want to go into too deeply because I don't think about it too much. I just do it.
charity plays an essential role in the lives of Paul, George and Mary. They don't use it as a way to gain recognition, but as a way to purely benefit the lives of others.
A service in the community is one of the most important things I think that an individual can do, no matter what.
I think it's giving back, really. I think that's what it is for me. Just give back in thanks for I being so lucky.
Throughout this piece, we have seen that there are people in this world who are beyond ordinary. They go above and beyond to help others. From Paul being involved with establishing a charity for the people of Lesotho, to George and Mary, who work effortlessly with the Chernobyl Children International charity. These people have changed the lives of many. They understand there is always more to be done to help those in need. They are willing to put in the time and effort to make a difference. Their charitable actions have touched the lives of many and will continue to do so for years to come. As we move on, it is important to remember that although we may feel ordinary, we all have the capabilities to do extraordinary things. This project was submitted to MTU Kerry Campus in part fulfilment of the requirements for a BA in TV, Radio and New Media. A special thank you to Donncha Toomey, Deirdre Boyle, Liam McCarthy, Martha Spangler and Radio Kerry Studios for their help and guidance.